Welcome back to the Big Sunday Show. FEMA may be finally on the ground in Ohio 2 weeks after the train derailed in East Palestine, but people who live there are skeptical that anything will be done. And while the concerns grow about possible health hazards, where are the leaders of the Biden administration? Missouri Republican Senator Schmidt calling out Pete Buttigieg for his lack of attention earlier on Sunday Morning Futures.
He's been a no-show in Ohio, and so the American people are right to be upset about this. They demand answers. I think it's part and parcel. A lot of these folks who claim to be environmentalists don't care much about the environment. They care about climate alarmism to scare people so they can gather more and more power and control. That's what this is about. But again, the Biden administration, and Pete Buttigieg specifically, has absolutely failed on this Ohio environmental disaster. And
where's the president? Well, he tweeted to Americans this morning that he's working on a ban on hotel resort fees. I guess that's building back better. You know, Charlie, before we get to the government aspect of this, is enough being done to hold Norfolk Southern accountable?
I think it's a great question. And what's particularly odd about all of this is, you know, Democrats claim to be the party that stands up to big corporations and, of course, claim to be environmentalists, which is a frickin' joke. But they claim to stand up to big corporations, and they're doing nothing. They're allowing a major corporation to run roughshod over citizens in this little town because they don't actually care. And Senator Schmidt is exactly right about this. The very people who claim the loudest to be environmentalists, they're not environmentalists. They don't care about the environment. That has nothing to do with their agenda. What they care about is power and how they collect that power and house it in the federal government so that they can have more control over everybody's lives and collect more money for their little pet projects.
Well, yeah, I mean, they care about when they can exploit it.
Right.
Power, to your point. You know, Tomi, I want to get this. So Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary, has called out this administration for the lack of leadership during this great crisis. Let's listen.
This is dereliction of duty 101. I mean, when you're the president of the United States or you're the cabinet secretary and something goes wrong on your watch, it doesn't matter if you were responsible, not responsible. People look to you for two things. One, to show that you care, and two, that you're going to do something about it. And when you remain silent, you fail to show up, you don't go to Ohio, you send every signal that one, you don't care, and two, you don't really care what gets done about it. That's the problem the Biden administration's in right now.
You know, but Tomi, resort fees are on this president's mind.
Resort fees, and then also he's going to be going to Poland to mark the 1 year of the minor incursion, as he once called it, of Russia into Ukraine. So once again, we talked about this yesterday. Ukraine is all that matters to this president. The American people who were suffering in the Chernobyl of the Midwest, not so much. But you brought up something in the last segment that I think applies to this as well. You talked about the Democrat machine and how it works so well that it doesn't really matter. And I think that's a perfect example of what's happening here. The Biden administration and everybody within it has learned one very simple thing. If they ignore something for long enough, it will go away. The border, there was some outcry about that. They ignored it. Borders are Kamala doesn't pay attention to it. Guess what? It kind of goes away. They didn't pay for it in the midterms. COVID. Oh, vaccines are not safe and effective. Okay, ignore it. It'll go away. All right, well then let's talk about the classified documents. Ignore it. It'll go away. Now the Chinese spy balloon, they'll be okay to focus on that for a little while longer, but once again, they ignored it. It'll go away. This, ignore it. It'll go away. And as you mentioned yesterday, long after there's Republican outrage about what's happening in Ohio, those people are still going to be suffering. And that is what's so horrific about this whole situation.
Well, and Griff, of course, that's the concern, because you're talking about things, you know, going away. But the people of East Palestine are worried that when the cameras go away, when the government goes away, they're going to be left. And we don't know what's going to happen. Let's take a listen to Dr. Johnson. She's a medical toxicology physician. Let's listen to what she had to say about vinyl chloride.
This is a compound that we've known about since at least 100 years ago. Ever since the 1970s, we've known that in the U.S. and other countries, people have gotten a very rare form of liver cancer called hepatic angiosarcoma after exposure to this chemical over years and years and years. But even in short-term exposures, vinyl chloride can be dangerous. We know that after short-term exposures, when people breathe it in for a short period of time, they can have trouble breathing, they can have headaches, they can have coughing. So people need to know these symptoms are real, and we understand why you're experiencing them.
And these are the fears that the people in East Palestine have.
Yeah, you know, a little bit to Tomi's point about, you know, addressing it only after it became apparent, and we have had no shortage of people, East Palestine residents, talking about the symptoms, vomiting, rashes, headaches, being sick. But Pete Buttigieg waited 10 days to respond. Had these residents not gone on cameras, Fox News and others, and talked about this, was he simply not going to respond? 10 days and he didn't. Was he on the Sunday shows today? Did anyone hold him accountable, put him in the hot seat and say, hey, where were you? You're the Department of Transportation Secretary, and there was a major transportation catastrophe. And, you know, it's really interesting. And again, the administration had an opportunity. The White House runs a press shop of all their secretaries. This is no secret. But they took an opportunity with overseas diplomats to hit the China balloons, Ukraine, Russia, and just seat Mayor Pete back over here. You stay off the sidelines right now because you, as Ari Fleischer said, dereliction of duty 101. And he hasn't gone there. The resident I talked to that got sick, I said, do you want Mayor Pete to come? Like, or do you even care about that? He said, I wish he would be there. I mean, he would at least see the reality of it. And, you know, the whole line about, well, there's 1,000 derailments, you know, going on. This is just one. Well, this one's different for that very reason, that woman talking about these chemicals.
Which is some response from the Secretary of Transportation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.